Hello and welcome to the show, Around the Nation right here, TYT Nation. I'm your host, Jeff Waldorf. Welcome to a great Thursday edition of the show. A lot of fun stories. We've got some fun stories, we've got some serious stories. We have another person, Ted Cruzing themselves on Twitter. That's fun. Sean Spicer, apparently nobody wants to hire him. And then, of course, another related story involving Harvard and their fellowship program. That's fun. And then an insurance company goes hard against single payer. Wow, who didn't see that one coming? We've got those comments from Aetna CEO on single payer. We'll talk about that. We'll break it down and, of course, show you why he's wrong. Then we've got a story on Paul Manafort, update on that. And then free college. Who supports it? You'll be surprised. I love that story. We're going to save that one for the last segment here. So stick around for the rest of the show if you're interested in seeing that. But like I said, we've got a whole bunch of other really interesting, really fun stories to go through today for the next hour. So if you can, please like and share the stream so that everybody else can know about it. Can come in and join in the fun. So, before I get into these stories, which are awesome, I am going to read out some names of some Patreons or patrons over at Patreon. I'm not sure what to call them, Patreons or patrons. All I know is you're awesome and you support the show. So, with that said, let's read some names. We've got Robert Boyd, Brett Dunn, Khalid Nixon, just Nathan, Michael Remy, Farzad Mansouri, Wendy Girardin, Jane Ferry, Frank Tenzer, Safir Amourpour, Kevin Broom, No Alternative, Jenny Wu, Tammy Bledsoe, Robert Lemons, Alan Eustache, and Pam Ferguson. So thank you to all those patrons that I have just give a shout out to, and thank you to all the patrons who support us on patreon.com/TYT Nation. It helps continue. It helps the show continue to go and to grow, get bigger, better, and all that wonderful stuff. So thank you very much. You are what makes the show happen. All right. Now there's another way to help the show as well. If you're not on Patreon, you can use the YouTube Super Chat. Which is also cool. One more thing. I need to share the show. I always tend to forget this. So I'm going to do a tweet here on Twitter real quick, promoting the live stream. Again, I've been really dropping the ball on that one today. So like I said, if you can give us a like and a share, it is much appreciated. So thank you. I was going to say bigly appreciated, but all right. Anyway, like I said, Super Chat, it's pretty cool. Your chats get elevated. I'll read them out on the air, and it also goes to help show. So you can use that. All right. Let's start with the next story. We'll have a little fun. Let's start out with the porn tweet. And now, recently, Ted Cruz got caught liking a porn video on Twitter, and we had a little bit of fun with it. Now, we also, in the midst of said fun, pointed out the hypocrisy on his part for defending a law that would ban sex toys and essentially masturbation. Now, of course, he decided to blame this like on his Twitter account on a poor, unnamed staff member. Yes, it was a staff, all right. History is filled with men getting in trouble due to the actions of their staff. But anyway, now we have a new politician that was also caught wanking it to Twitter porn. But of course, unlike the Ted Cruz case, this is actually not incest porn, and the hypocrisy is even more delicious. Now, this is Florida State Representative Ross Spano. Now, Spano is a Republican. He's a big, very much a family friend, a family values kind of guy, right? I mean, look, you take a look at his Twitter account. For the most part, he loves FSU football clips. That's his alma mater. He also posts a lot of Bible verses and really, really hates Islam because, hey, it takes away your freedom, right? However, that same Twitter account back in January also happened to have liked a tweet from an account named The Goddess Lesbian. Oh, that's very interesting. Now, that tweet featured a video clip from adult entertainment company Reality Kings. Now, the 17-second clip, which I can't show you here, it shows two women engaging in some rather fun and interesting sexual acts. I do have an image of that tweet that is not NSFW, so it's okay. Let me show you that here. Oh, that's interesting. So that's his Twitter account. Expert on oral sex, and it's got all these different people tagged. That's fun. Well, look, no problem there, right? Sure, it seems a little strange that a very pro-family Christian guy would openly like a lesbian porn video and then happen to leave that like up there for 9 months. But hey, whatever. But look, let's be honest with you guys, okay? And a lot of you brought this up after the Ted Cruz thing. We know a lot of people in the Bible Belt love porn. They love their porn. In fact, there was a recent study published in the Journal of Sex Research that found that the biggest consumers of porn in America are, supposed to be a drum roll, evangelical Protestants. Those are people who believe in God, attend church very, very often, and in a lot of cases take the Bible very, very literally. Now, that is super ironic. Now, I don't care if you spank it or rub it or do whatever you want to. Hey, man, have a good time. Do you, boo, right? However, I do care when you do things like this. According to the Orlando Weekly, Spanos recently filed a bill called H.R. 157. Now, H.R. 157 would basically declare pornography as a public health crisis. Oops. I think somebody is feeling just a little bit guilty for spanking the monkey. Now, Spano's bill claims that no, there's a good reason for declaring porn a health crisis because it is, quote, contributing to the hypersexualization of children and teens because it serves as their main source of education regarding human sexuality. Well, hey, man, maybe that wouldn't be the case if, I don't know, schools were able to teach comprehensive sex education, which has been proven to lower teen pregnancy and STD rates and help kids make smarter decisions in their sexuality instead of being completely clueless and just, doing what they're doing, which can be very disastrous on the teens and the families. Now, the bill also says that it promotes kids developing low self-esteem, eating disorders, and a desire to engage in dangerous sexual behavior. It says recent research indicates that pornography is potentially biologically addictive, resulting in the user consuming increasingly more shocking material to satisfy the addiction. And finally says pornography has the detrimental effect on families and is linked to a reluctance to enter into marriage, dissatisfaction in marriage, and marital infidelity. Now, all these different claims, that's what the bill says, are demonstrably false, verifiably false. Okay, there's literally no research that corroborates the claims in this bill. But again, here we're dealing with a religious fundamentalist, and of course they don't believe in things like facts and research. But moreover to the point, this guy feels super, super guilty. Look, the guy watches some lesbians do their thing, right? He gets off, and then he's like, oh, I feel really, really bad because I'm taught from my religion that I shouldn't be able to do this. And so he overreacts and calls porn a health crisis. I mean, hey, guys, porn is super addicting. I mean, I'm not addicted to it, but other people are. And I'm going to help them get away with it, get away from this deliciously naughty porn that I absolutely hate. Hey, where's my smartphone? I gotta get on the Twitter machine and look up some look up some tweets. I'm just gonna look up some tweets, do some research. Come on, man. No, nobody would believe that. And look, furthermore, nobody cares if you look at porn. You're an adult. Do whatever. But also remember that this is not a health crisis. Okay, it is perfectly normal to want to look at naked people. It's also normal to go to work on yourself. Okay? And maybe you could find better sources of porn than just Twitter. But hey, at least, again, it wasn't Ted Cruz's incest porn. But my whole point is, while it's very normal to be a sexual human being, it is not normal to try to ban people from looking at other naked human beings. Okay? Don't get in our business. We're not going to get in yours. Just because you're repressed does not mean that we have to be repressed. Now, of course, Spano makes a statement on this. He says, quote, obviously, I have a long social media history on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram since I was first elected in 2012. I was kind of worried that he was going to say he had a long something else, but never mind. He said, with a thorough examination of my accounts, I'm sure it was very, very thorough when you went back and found that tweet. He said, it will be easy to see that this is not my doing. I have since gone back, once notified, and I rectified the problem. I'm sure you did. And now I'm looking into how it occurred in the first place. Perhaps it was some late night viewing and you pressed the wrong button. Expect it. He's going to be like, it's a staff member. Or, I was hacked. What can I do? I went back and I unliked it, and it took me like 5 minutes to unlike it, but I unliked it. Now, he continues, in addition, referencing my prior statement, I don't believe any of this takes the focus off the fact, again, not a fact, that there is direct correlation between pornography and a host of societal problems, including human trafficking, exploitation of children, sex slavery, and domestic violence. No, here's the thing, right? There's actually a correlation away from that. See, if you allow people to have some sexual freedom, you have less of those problems. But the more strict and the more repressed people are, the more you're going to have these kinds of problems. Look, for example, let's talk about Iran, right? This guy hates Muslim countries. Okay, well, look, in Muslim countries, you have very, very, very strict draconian rules, right? So, they banned premarital sex and they banned pornography. And, well, what happened there? What happened? Well, people didn't stop looking at porn. People didn't stop having sex. All that stuff, it just went underground, right? It's been reported before that people get together in secret in secret areas and have, like, massive, giant pool orgies. Now, that's actually super dangerous for several reasons, of course. The safety issue. And not only that, but if you get caught by the police, that's a death sentence. So if the cops know, you're dead. You can be charged for adultery and be murdered by the state. Now, look, we're nowhere near that, of course. But boy, that's quite the slippery slope when you start trying to ban sexuality, or expressions of sexuality, or even pornography, okay? So, I mean, again, we're not even near close to that, but that is the eventual logical conclusion when you start putting fundamentalists in power who believe in these kinds of things. So, anyway, as much fun as we're having with these people who are obvious hypocrites, we do have to remember that we are putting these kinds of people in power, and that their own insecurities can have a huge, huge impact on both our laws and our lives. Okay. I had to get serious for a second because I don't want to see, people who are super fundamentalist continue to get elected into power. Because what do the Republicans do when they get into power? Well, they ban pornography. They ban same-sex marriage. They go after any expressions of sex. They say they're for small government, but then they invaded your bedroom and into a woman's uterus. So you can't really be small government and be in favor of getting into somebody's personal business. So and that's why we got to keep railing against these assholes. Okay. Anyway, let's get into the next story here. Still trying to have fun. Spicer. This may be my favorite story. I don't know. Now, former White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer's job prospects after leaving the administration have been very slim. NBC News reported on Wednesday that 5 different network news outlets, CBS News, CNN, Fox News, ABC, and NBC News, all passed on their opportunity to hire Sean Spicer. Well, now wait a minute. You haven't had Fox News saying, nope, we're not interested. We're going to take a hard pass on this one, Spicy. You're on your own, dude. Now, why? Well, this is very interesting because this is the best part. Sources told NBC that Spicer was passed over because of a lack of credibility. Well, of course that's going to happen when you go out and lie about the most ridiculous things. For example, crowd sizes. Now, what do you think? I mean, do you think that a network is going to go trip over themselves for a bullshitter? Again, not even Fox News wanted you. That's super, super embarrassing and very sad, especially since these outgoing communications officials have actually usually had a pretty easy time finding themselves on TV. I mean, a couple of examples are MSNBC and NBC had hired former White House Press Secretary Josh Earnest as a political analyst earlier this year. Now that joins Nicole Wallace, George W. Bush's former communications director, and not only that, but Dana Perino, also former Bush press secretary. She's on Fox News all the time. So you also have CNN hiring Dan Pfeiffer several months after he left the White House back in 2015. So he can't even get a job with any of these when normally a job is a layup. Now, also what makes it super odd is that networks have been putting on Trump officials. For example, former Trump campaign director Jason Miller. He joined CNN as a contributor. Now, you also had Corey Lewandowski, who had a little bit of a stint on CNN as well. So, but hey, they're not hiring Spicer. Interesting. So, where does he have left to go? Oh, you're going to love this. This is according to Newsweek. Spicer is still reportedly exploring opportunities, including the freedom to appear on multiple networks and a potential non-scripted reality show. A reality show. How ironic. Since, of course, this is a guy that used to work for a reality show president. Ooh, I know what we can call it. Behind Two Ferns. Or Among the Ferns. And you know what? It will be the highest rated reality show. Period. Seriously, though. Maybe the corporate media, maybe they're actually starting to learn something. I know, big hope, right? Because, look, maybe they realize that it's not a good idea to put these people on television so they can spew their bullshit. Maybe they get that even though Trump people are good for ratings, the things that, you know, Corey Lewandowski says or had said or Sean Spicer says or has said are actually harmful to the country. You know, all this rampant lying. I don't know. Maybe. But what I do know is that if we're lucky, Sean Spicer will no longer ever grace our television screens. And for that, I am thankful. Okay. Again, easy stories. Very simple. Let's move on. All right. You get a drink here. And again, make sure to like and share the stream. And get it out there to everybody. Okay. Now, it seems like Harvard University alumni really do not want Sean Spicer or Corey Lewandowski to be given fellowships at their institution. Now, this whole fight comes after a list was released early in September of people who would be made visiting fellows at the Institute of Politics. Now, among that list is, of course, Sean Spicer, as I said, Corey Lewandowski, Joe Scarborough, and Chelsea Manning. Now, Manning was on the list, and then she was summarily dropped. I'll get into that in a minute. But Newsweek is reporting that Spicer and Lewandowski have attracted the most pushback from members of the university community. An online open letter asking Harvard President Drew Faust to rescind the offers of fellowships to the pair have been signed more than 1,900 times by people that are claiming to be Harvard alumni. Now, the letter addressed to Faust and the Institute of Politics at Harvard said that the invitations had given an imprimatur of intellectual and moral legitimacy to two men who had done much to degrade public discourse in this country, reignite white nationalism, and further reactionary policies that harm millions. So the letter also criticized Spicer for serving as, quote, the mouthpiece for an administration that runs counter to the values Harvard purports to embody, and questioned what undergraduate students could learn from him. It said, what can undergraduates learn from a man whose brief tenure in national communications began with an unabashed lie about crowd sizes, continued with an ignorant minimization of the Holocaust, dabbled in unvarnished hostility to the free press, and ended in public ignominy? The letter asks. And of course, the answer to that is nothing. I mean, if you're there to learn how to lie and bullshit to people and to exaggerate crowd sizes, then I guess Sean Spicer's your man. If you want to learn how to assault a reporter, you would go to Corey Lewandowski, which we'll get to him too, because the letter also addresses him. But again, look, those reasons are, well, those are the reasons that even mainstream corporate media will not hire him. CNN, not even Fox News, man. All the mainstream corporate media channels, they took a big hard pass on Spicer. Okay. In fact, sources told NBC that Spicer was passed over because of a, quote, lack of credibility. So he has no credibility, and he should have no credibility. Now, on to Corey Lewandowski. Now, the open letter also referenced Lewandowski's controversial time as Trump's presidential campaign manager, during which he allegedly assaulted a female news reporter and was seen on video manhandling an anti-Trump protester at a campaign rally. The letter said that Lewandowski had run a campaign that began with racist provocation and continued with rampant misogyny, and suggested he posed a threat to would-be journalists at Harvard. The letter said, what could this man offer that would be worth exchanging for the safety of student journalists and the greater Harvard community? Now, this letter, of course, was launched by Harvard graduates Talia Lavin, Paul B. Van Kofnet, and Pete D. Davis, according to the Daily Beast. Lavin told the publication last week that they were aiming for over 500 signatures, and of course, as you can see, they got way more than that. Almost 2,000 signatures. So, good on the alumni for pushing back on these two obviously deplorable people. However, I'm not going to give too much accolades until they actually start pushing to reinstate Chelsea Manning as a visiting fellow. Now, the university did rescind their offer to Manning in a show of extreme cowardice after CIA Director Mike Pompeo decided to pull out of a speaking engagement at a Harvard forum. Oh my God, you don't want to mess with Mike Pompeo. Why? Because people can learn so much from him? No. No, here's the thing, right? The college establishment got super spooked because they were challenged by somebody who actually put her neck out on the line and actually served jail time to let us know, the people know, what the government was doing in our name. And so here's Mike Pompeo, now a member of the government, saying, oh, we're not comfortable with that. I'm going to have to pull out unless if you get rid of Chelsea Manning, I'll stay in. because everybody wants to listen to fucking Mike Pompeo. Really? No. Look, I don't know if these alumnus, by the way, are sticking up for Manning or not, but I do hope so. However, I do appreciate that they're at least pushing back against Lewandowski and Spicer. There's absolutely no benefit to having those two serial liars and altogether terrible people be visiting fellows to Harvard. Whereas Manning, again, people can learn from her. Now, the college, as I said, is going to have to decide whether or not it's actually going to listen to the alumni and not just kowtow to the people in power, the people in government. So we're going to see if they have the balls to do the right thing, and I hope they do. Okay. So let's go from that. Actually, I want to take a quick 2-minute break. We'll come back. We'll do more stories. Stay right here. Welcome back to the show. Around the Nation right here. TYT Nation. Okay, yep. We're on. So, I just want to give everybody a reminder that you can use the hashtag TYT Nation on Twitter, or you can use the YouTube Super Chat. I haven't seen any yet, so if I do see any, I will make sure to read those comments. There are no also no new tweets. So, all right. So we got more stories here. We will go with our next story, which is insurance. Okay. Okay, and unsurprisingly, the head of Aetna, Mark Bertolini. Let me start that again. Unsurprisingly, the head of Aetna, Mark Bertolini, is not a fan of single-payer healthcare. Gee, I wonder why. And now he has gone on the attack. Now, Bertolini, speaking at the Strategic Investor Initiative Conference in New York on Tuesday, in response to a question from The Intercept, said that the Sanders single-payer bill does, quote, nothing to fix the underlying cost structure of the healthcare system. Now, he said, if we refinance a lousy product, what do we get? A lousy result. So if we refinance a lousy product, what do we get? A lousy result. So, okay, So let me go to those statements right there. For one, it's Mark Bartolini that does not understand, or maybe he does understand. The big problem with the cost structure of our current insurance system is the fact that it's for profit. You're the problem. See, insurance companies and their massive amounts of overhead, advertising costs, and shareholder profits are actually costing Americans a ton in health insurance. And by the way, did he just call healthcare insurance a lousy product? Just saying. Now, Bertolini goes a little bit further, and this is according to an article by Li Fang of The Intercept. He says, the Aetna CEO also ridiculed proponents of single payer, suggesting that they are confused. Some supporters, Bertolini warned, are in fact talking about socializing all the hospitals and doctors. Everybody's going to work for the government. No. That's not true. You're either confused or you're lying your ass off. I can't tell which. Single payer does not mean the hospitals will be run by the government. That's incorrect. Just like now, a lot of the doctors and hospitals will be privately run. They'll just get paid by the government. The difference here is that you will be insured by the government. Your premiums, you won't have to pay any premiums. Your health care would actually come out of your taxes instead of out-of-pocket costs and premiums, or through your employer. It's simply one payer as opposed to multiple payers, some with profit motives. So again, I think he lied about that. And then he asked this room of investors and analysts to name a country that does single payer. Now, let me name a few countries. First, Canada. That's the obvious choice, right? In fact, that's what his analysts had answered. You also have Norway, Finland, Japan, the UK, Italy, Spain, and Iceland that have a strict single-payer system. Now, there are other countries out there that have a two-tiered system, which is single-payer plus a private insurance option to supplement plans, or some of them also have an insurance mandate, kind of like the ACA. Now, interestingly enough, places within the insurance mandate actually make sure that their systems are nonprofit. Now, the Swiss system is an insurance mandate, right? So what happens in Switzerland? Well, for one, everybody carries two different government mandated policies. One is personal everyday medical health insurance. Now, if you're poor in Switzerland, the government will subsidize you. And the second insurance that you need is accident medical insurance, which is, of course, half paid by the employer and half paid for by the employee, or if the employee can't afford it, subsidized by the state. Now, Switzerland makes sure that their insurance companies are not for profit. Now, that is a big difference from what they do in America. And as a result, in a lot of these countries, there's a 98 to 100% coverage rate. They're truly universal systems. In America, we don't have universal health care because there are still millions of people who can't afford coverage. Now, Bertolini seems fine with that as long as he and his company keep making money. Now, again, he asked that question, and several participants did answer Canada. Now, he didn't like that answer, and he said, well, Canada, he sees the problem with Canada is that they have a government-run healthcare system. They're not single-payer. They're single everything. But as I just explained, that is actually incorrect. There is things that the Canadian government does not cover in their healthcare system, and so they do have also supplementary insurance. Which I realized I forgot to put them in the second tier system. There is actually supplemental insurance. There's dental insurance that they offer in Canada as well. So I do apologize for that little mistake. But anyway, let's go forward with that. Now, I think Bertolini, in my opinion, intentionally confused single payer with the single provider system. Now, a single provider is sort of like the National Health Service in the UK. Now, under that service, the doctors and providers do work directly for the government. They're government employees. This is not what Sanders is pushing. That's actually not what single payer is. Under Sanders' bill, all Americans will be enrolled into Medicare, and patients would be free to choose their private sector healthcare providers. So no longer will you not be able to choose a doctor that's not in your network, right? If you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor because all doctors will be in one network. So now the legislation also provides a range of cost-cutting measures, including provisions to lower drug prices. There's a lot of stuff in there. It's 75 pages long. So now finally, Bertolini goes to the last most ridiculous argument, and he says there's nowhere in the Constitution that says we will need to provide people health care. Oh, it's not in there. Well, if it's not in the Constitution, we can't do it. Well, wait a minute. There's a lot of things that we do that isn't in the Constitution. Does that mean we should stop doing those things? No, that would be dumb. And that would actually cost a lot of money to do, to undo everything that isn't in the Constitution. But anyway, he also continued that I think government-run healthcare would be a bad idea because I think you end up with the central planning problem that has crushed the Soviet and Russian economies, so there's some obvious red baiting there. Well, the good news is that if you don't like government-run healthcare, well, it's a very good thing that Sanders' bill is not that. But look, seriously, I do think he knows the difference. I do think he's bullshitting people. And you want to know why? Well, it's because the money. Follow the money, right? During his talk, Bertolini boasted the Aetna stock price surged from $29.85 per share in November to $162 a share this week. And in 2016, he received compensation package worth $41 million. So he's getting rich off of this. But look, that's not to say he's a bad CEO or technically even a bad person. He just has bad ideas, right? Fong notes that the majority of Bertolini's talk was centered on his work to stimulate a better workplace practice at his company, from raising wages of the lowest paid Aetna employees to providing in-house yoga programs. But look, all that stuff is well, fine, and good, but I think everybody deserves health care. It's a human right. And our for-profit insurance model, even if they give, the companies themselves give nice little perks and benefits and yoga classes, I still think profiting off somebody's health care is immoral. Okay? Especially given the fact that people die if they can't afford health insurance or health care. And thanks to that profit motive, these companies will not be in a position to support single payer to make sure that people don't die if they can't get health insurance. Because under single payer, everybody does get health insurance. And that's why companies like Aetna funnel millions of dollars to Republicans. In fact, in 2012, Aetna inadvertently revealed that it funneled more than $7 million to GOP dark money campaign groups that specialize in electing Republicans without disclosure of their donors. And these Republicans are very, very happy to work for their donors to make sure that we don't have single payer or universal health care that is affordable for everyone. Like I said, you just got to follow the money, and then you know exactly what these people stand for. Okay. So let's move on to Manafort. Got a couple more stories here. There is another new development into the investigation into the Trump campaign's ties to the Russian government. Now, this tie, of course, concerns Paul Manafort. Now, in a series of emails turned over to the congressional investigators and special counsel Mueller's team, Manafort had offered to give private briefings of the 2016 campaign to a Putin-connected billionaire named Oleg Deripaska. Now, that's a name that keeps popping up. In fact, there's several names of billionaires that keep popping up in relation to Paul Manafort and Donald Trump. Now, The Washington Post writes that Paul Manafort had apparently made the offer in an email to an overseas intermediary asking that a message be sent to Oleg Deripaska, who was an aluminum magnate with whom Paul Manafort had done business in the past. The email reads, this is July 7th, 2016, quote, "If he needs private briefings, we can accommodate." Now, it's important to note that there is no evidence in the documents showing that Deripaska had received Manafort's offer or that any of these briefings took place. So, like I said, that is important to note. But nonetheless, investigators believe that these exchanges, which reflect Manafort's willingness to profit from his prominent role alongside of Donald Trump, created a potential opening for Russian interests at the highest level of a U.S. presidential campaign. Now think about this. Who would want to profit off a relationship to the president? Oh, right. Everybody. Now, if you're saying that, no, of course, nobody would try to profit personally off a position of power related to a president or a presidential campaign, well, you would be lying to yourself and everybody else. There's no way you could believe that. Of course, people want to profit personally off power and positions. That's why a lot of people run for these positions. So let me ask you, how did he plan to profit? Well, the Post explains several of these exchanges, which took place between Manafort and a Kiev-based employee of his international political consulting practice, focused on money that Manafort believed he was owed by Eastern European clients. Investigators believe that key passages in these communications refer to Deripaska, who is referenced in some places by initials OVD, according to people familiar with the emails. One email uses the term black caviar in what investigators believe is a veiled reference to payments Manafort hoped to receive from his former clients. In one April exchange, days after Trump named Manafort as a campaign strategist, Manafort referred to his positive press and growing reputation and asked, quote, "How do we use to get whole?" So, how do we use to get whole? Basically, he's saying, how can I use my position of power to collect this money that people owe me? Now, Manafort spokesman Jason Maloney said in response to this on Wednesday that the email exchanges reflected a, quote, innocuous effort to collect past debts. Quote, "It's no secret Mr. Manafort was owed money by past clients." So, wait, here is his own spokesman saying that, yes, Manafort was discussing how he could leverage his status as a leading campaign strategist on an American political campaign to go after some of the debts he was owed by people in foreign countries. So basically, this is an effort to use his position to enrich himself financially. Now that in itself, I guess not so illegal, right? Although I'm not entirely sure of the legality of the issue. However, the question here is what Manafort might have done to get that money back and whether or not the efforts to get the money back were in themselves illegal. So I think that's what the investigation is really looking into Manafort. Now, the Post also notes that the email exchanges with Manafort's Kiev-based employee add to an already perilous legal situation for Manafort, whose real estate dealings and overseas bank accounts are of intense interest to Mueller and congressional investigators as part of their examination of the 2016 election. People close to Manafort believe that Mueller's goal is to force the former campaign chairman to flip on his former boss and provide information, which is why, of course, they've been leaning so hard on Manafort. First, they took the step of raiding his home, and they did so in a fashion, by the way, that made sure that he didn't destroy evidence. When you do a no-knock raid and you pick somebody's lock, as a federal official, you're doing so because you're afraid that if you do knock, or you do tell them, hey, we're going to come to your house, and we're going to come take this stuff, these documents related to this case, well, then you're just going to be like, documents? What documents? I don't have any documents. What are you talking about? They're afraid that he was going to destroy evidence. So that means it's very serious. And the fact that he was able to get not one but two warrants on wiretapping and to get this raid, all that stuff shows that there's a lot of, a lot of maybe not evidence itself, but I'm trying to think of the word here. Let's just say that they have a very convincing reason to go after Paul Manafort. So they think that they've got something on him, but we don't know for sure. Okay. And look, they might have even issued an indictment, which again would send a very, very strong signal. So with this, with all that and with these emails added in, it's kind of a bad time to be Paul Manafort. Okay. Especially since those emails themselves could provide these prosecutors with additional leverage and to get them to try to flip on Trump or on anyone else that might have any of these ties. Again, we don't know exactly what the government's case against Manafort is built upon, but according to the Times, investigators seem confident enough to have either given the indictment or flat out threatened Manafort with an indictment. Now, interestingly enough, here's one more thing on this. And this is Trump's lawyer, Ty Cobb. Now, he decided to weigh in on this. And he talked to Bloomberg's Margaret Telev. And he said, quote, "It would be truly shocking if Paul Manafort tried to monetize his relationship with the president. It certainly would have never been tolerated by the president or his team." Oh, what's that? Do you hear that? Oh, that's the sound of the bus that Trump's team just threw Paul Manafort under. Now, look, we don't know if the president actually knew anything about this or was involved. After all, he's not a very smart person. He's kind of dumb. He's kind of an idiot. So we don't know how much he was involved in this. But nonetheless, it does have the Trump team scared enough to decide to throw their former campaign manager to the wolves, if not to only save themselves. And that, I think, says a lot. Okay. One more here. We're going to leave you off with some good and interesting news. Oops, that's not it. Here we go. Okay. Now, okay. Hold. Now, a lot of centrist Democrats and Republicans say that Bernie Sanders' policy positions are pie in the sky. They're unworkable, and they're likely to not be supported by the American people. They think that being center-right is actually in line with the wishes of the American people. I think the average politician believes that the rest of the country is about as conservative as one of the most conservative districts in Louisiana. So now what that means to them is, well, American people, they obviously want fiscal responsibility, balanced budgets, free market individualism, and absolutely no socialism. Well, that might be wrong. It turns out we're all kind of socialists. Now, take this new poll from Morning Consult on Bernie's plan to make all public colleges and universities tuition free. Now, you listen to a centrist, you listen to a right-wing pundit, they're going to be like, oh my God, this socialist plan giving free money, ponies to everybody. But wait a minute, this is actually a fairly uncontroversial plan. Now, considering that we spend billions of dollars on the different programs, like Pell Grants, for example, and other programs in order to try to help people afford college already. Now, despite all this spending, college tuition continues to skyrocket. It's actually a major problem. Now, how this relates to Republicans, well, Morning Consult decided to ask Republicans who do care about fiscal responsibility whether or not they support a proposal to make four-year public colleges and universities tuition free, the Bernie Sanders plan. Now, that was the exact wording. So let me tell you how they responded. 47% of Republican respondents said that they strongly or somewhat support the proposal, while 45% say they strongly or somewhat oppose it. So let me get this straight. There's a majority of Republicans that are like, free college? Why not? But wait, it gets better and actually a little weirder. Among self-identified Tea Party backers, support is also strong, with 50% saying they support the proposal, while 49% oppose it. Now, that's among the Tea Party, okay? You know what Tea Party stands for? Taxed enough already. And here they are, they're like, yeah, free college, university, whatever. Yeah, go ahead and take my tax money and do this. That's amazing. Now, again, this is a much slimmer margin, 50 to 49, but again, we're cool with free college. Overall, with the American people, 63% of Americans support the proposal, while only 29% in total oppose it. So, let me get into the point of where this actually makes a ton of sense, fiscally. Because I know there are the right-wing pundits, there are the centrists that are out there, they're crying about ponies, they're talking about, oh my God, how can we ever afford this? Okay, well, for one, let me just point out that Congress just approved an $80 billion hike in defense spending. That's an $80 billion increase. Okay, now that increase, that could have paid for free college for everyone in America. And yet, again, our defense budget is nearly $700 billion a year. They got an increase of $80 billion. And you know how much free college would have cost? Just over $40 billion. According to the New America Foundation, we currently spend $69 billion, or at least we did in 2013, on the hodgepodge of different financial aid programs, such as Pell Grants for low-income students, tax breaks, and work-study funding. That does not include how much we spend in student loans. So, not only would free tuition, tuition for every public college and university save us money, but it turns out everybody would graduate without debt. You know what that would help? That would help small businesses as well as large businesses. Now think about it. Without having to service that debt, new graduates could instead buy houses, new cars, new furniture, get married, have kids, participate in the economy, and actually generally live life. So we have the money to do this, right? In fact, doing this would save money in the long run. And get this, everybody who wanted an education will be able to get one. Now, the pundits, of course, they despise this, especially on the right. In fact, the website Hot Air said, quote, turns out a lot of Republicans want their free shit too. God forbid Trump figures that out. Because again, Trump follows the polls and he lives on affirmation. Somebody quick send a tweet to Trump with this poll in it and be like, hey man, if you give us free, public college and university, you'll be super popular. Also healthcare, super popular. Just saying. But look, the thing is, again, the right, and the pundits on the right that are getting funded by the Koch brothers and all these giant think tanks to go out and put out this propaganda that is basically there to shrink government so that people like the Koch brothers don't have to pay taxes. The billionaires don't have to pay more taxes. That's who's trying to shut this down. But think about it. To the average Trump or Republican, this is actually fiscally sound. I mean, look, free education that allows people to get better jobs or learn to create businesses without being saddled with all this debt is wonderful for the average, even the average Republican. But to these pundits, it's, as Hillary Clinton puts it, a pony. Which, by the way, she was against that at first. until Bernie Sanders made her get on board with this, with a slightly more or slightly less progressive plan, but that would still leave people without debt. But look, the thing is, it's not a pony, it's actually smart policy. It's an investment in people. And look, I know we don't invest in people anymore. I get that, right? Instead, we invest in corporations, and yet, of course, they want us to believe that those two things are the same, that people are corporations, that corporations are people. Well, they're not, and no one buys it. Now, there is one more interesting tidbit on this, and that is the poll also shows support for a number of social spending proposals, which would again seem to be very socialist. For instance, 43% of Americans said that they supported a universal basic income versus the 39% who happened to be opposed. Now, that actually is more a libertarian idea, or at least it was proposed by a libertarian. But basically his thought was, give people a basic income and then we can eliminate all the welfare programs. Now, the reason to do that, I think in their view, is, well, that shrinks government, that gets rid of all these redundant agencies, and it just says, we're going to give you the choice and the freedom to go and spend your money how you choose, instead of the government telling you how to spend this welfare money. For example, SNAP only goes to food, and WIC only goes to children, et cetera, et cetera. We're just going to give you a lump of money, and you're going to go spend it however you're going to spend it, and if you misuse it, well, that's your fault. So I get that. But nonetheless, UBI is actually a very solid, sound policy. And especially, I think it's going to be especially important, and I think we're going to have a bigger conversation on UBI as automation continues to progress. That is a huge, huge threat. For example, if we do end up having a UBI and automation takes most of the menial jobs, well, if we have UBI, then that's not a bad thing. The people can still live comfortably. They can train for some of the better jobs, create new jobs, or, they at least don't have to live in poverty for the inability to get a job. Now, if we go the opposite route and don't adopt a UBI, well then, and the automation will take those menial jobs, well, then we're going to end up having a permanent underclass of low-skilled, perpetually unemployed, and uneducated citizens who will end up being ruthlessly exploited, if not just forgotten. So for those people, we can end up with a real big dystopia on our hands. And I think that a lot of Americans kind of understand that. If the robots take all your jobs, well, then you've got to do something for the people so they can survive. And they realize that, hey, UBI, that kind of makes sense. So anyway, it turns out on the issues, no matter what label you are, Democrat or Republican, I think Americans are actually far more progressive than we give them credit for, and they understand good, sound policy. And more importantly, they align more with Bernie Sanders than they did with Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton. And I have to ask, knowing that, is there any more doubt that Bernie would have won? Okay. That's it. That's all I got. We will not be here tomorrow. More moving stuff. So I apologize. Hopefully we'll be in the new place and set up by Monday. We'll let you know whether or not I am. We'll have a show. It's going to be a real super busy weekend for me, aside from the personal stuff I have to do and moving as well. So, but anyway, thank you for tuning in. Make sure to give us a like and share if you haven't already. Thanks to the patrons, as always, for supporting the show, for supporting us, what we do here. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You can check out our previous shows on Patreon if you haven't already. They're all posted up there to watch at your leisure. So you can go ahead and do that. That's about it for announcements. Love you guys. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, TYT Nation. We'll see you next week.